Hello, AGA members. I'm Chris Garlick, managing editor of the AGA e-journal, joined once again by Michael Redmond, 9-Dan professional. And today, Michael's going to take a look at a game he played against Akiyama Jiro, 9P, in the Kiriyama Cup. As always, before we get started, I want to thank all our AGA members. And if you'd like to support this content as well, please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. Michael, we're taking a little break from the AlphaGo games today. People love to see your games, so I'm excited about this. Tell us about Mr. Akiyama.
Okay, well, he's relatively young, I guess. He's probably in his 30s now, but he's a pretty strong player. He's in the Kisei League. I think he's in the B League, so that's still in the top 30 players. It's a special round-robin league that is sort of parallel with the A and the S. There's an S League too, a special league. But they're all sort of parallel in that the winners of the leagues will be playing each other to decide who becomes the challenger. So he's pretty up there at the top levels of Go. But I happen to be matched against him in this is actually the A elimination of the Kiriyama Cup. So it's the final elimination tournament before we get into the publicized final section. And it's a relatively short game. Like, it's not what Japanese games are usually 3 hours apiece on the clock, and then of course you have overtime. But this game is just 1 hour. So compared to most Japanese games, it's a relatively fast game.
Almost Hayago, right? I mean, that's pretty speedy.
Oh, it's pretty speedy. Well, like if you look at Korea and China, I guess there's a lot of tournaments that play at this time control, and actually 3 hours apiece is pretty long for for China and Korea most of the time. But in Japan, that's the norm, and 1 hour is relatively short time limit.
Did you do anything in particular to prepare for this game?
Well, that's sort of interesting because, there is an opening that I'll be showing you. Let's just get a few moves into the game. There's this opening that I've been playing around with for a while, throughout this year, actually. And I was still experimenting with it. So in general, I had been preparing with this opening. And there was this move that comes up in it, a very unusual move that I played. And there was this one position in which I thought maybe it was going to work. And in general, I'm not going to recommend this move to people, but there was this one position. And at the point I played this game, I'd been studying this move for about 2 weeks. And I had sort of come to the conclusion that maybe I had better just forget this move and not play it in games. But then we got to this perfect position in which I thought maybe it was going to work. And I couldn't help it.
Resist,
and it turned out fairly well because, as I was saying, we only had 1 hour apiece, and my opponent did end up using a lot of his time handling that unusual move.
Oh, cool. Well, we should take a look. But anything else that we should look out for in this game before we do?
Well, it gets really exciting in the middle game, and I get into a lot of trouble.
But good.
It's a kind of AlphaGo-like in the way that we get into a lot of trouble.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I'm sure you handle it just as well.
That's how I'm going to sell it.
And it's our video, so you know.
Yeah. Okay, so this shoulder hit is a kind of an AI move, and there's a lot of questions though. Like, is White going to push, or is White going to crawl, or is White going to play away? And all of those can happen. And so at the point I play this move, it's kind of experiment still. It turns out White played the safest move, you might say. So this is sort of going as according to plan when I play this version of the Chinese opening. I think actually this is a pretty good opening for Black already. And so at this point, Black has a number of options. Black can play the Kosumi here. This is the simplest Joseki. White will extend somewhere on the side usually. And something like this might happen, in which case Black is aiming to use that one stone there to start to invade on the upper side, White to attack White on the upper side with the next move. And so black is fast-paced, taking territory, and white will probably maybe even add a stone to that group on the upper side. This is about even. I like to think it's maybe a slight advantage for black, actually. Otherwise, black could play here.
Oh, really
now, black
tight.
plays the pincer.
Yeah.
Now, white will play here. This is also a fairly common joseki. Slightly more difficult to completely understand, but I think Dan players will mostly know this joseki. And this variation, black ends with gote, and white will probably invade at A. So you have to have a good plan to how to deal with A. That's a very effective move for white to invade the upper side. But this is also about an even result. It's not bad for black. So I did none of those. So
in
back
true AlphaGo style, you did none of
yeah.
those.
Yeah.
No, seriously though, is that something? I mean, I was thinking about this because we've been working on these and then also working on the book. So I mean, you must be just dreaming AlphaGo at this point, and I'm wondering. Yeah. But one of the things is that, especially in sort of reverse engineering all the AlphaGo games, you look at all these things that AlphaGo might do that AlphaGo usually winds up not doing, and I'm wondering, are you doing the same thing?
I try to. It's a lot of fun to be trying different moves. But as I said, most of the time they're not going to work if you just do them at random.
Okay.
And I did study this move that I'm playing on my next move for about 2 weeks, and in the end I didn't like it. But this was the one position in which I thought it maybe would work, and so I tried it. Where do you think I played? Just think AlphaGo, Chris. You should be able to get it. You haven't seen the game yet, so it's a challenge for you.
Yeah. So it's AlphaGo's black move. I think AlphaGo. I mean, probably just some sort of tanuki.
You're not going to get there that way, no.
No.
I did play a move in the upper right area.
In the upper right.
Yeah.
How about the Shamari?
Oh, you're talking about this move.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be actually a pretty normal shape, but it works best when black is trying to build on the right side.
That's too normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a shoulder hit on the left. That would be too.
You mean this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I played.
No,
that would be too weird, wouldn't it?
Is it really? That's really the move.
That's the move. Yeah.
Wow. I would have played that without spending 2 weeks on it. Which is a difference between a professional and a rank amateur. So what happens?
Well, white's best move is probably just to push on the fourth line.
Sure, absolutely.
And I extend once. And so first I'll show you the game variation where white pushed at A and I played at B. This is already working fairly well for black.
Yeah, sure. You play on both sides.
Right, that's the idea. I'm sort of getting in the way of white extending on the upper side there.
Right.
So if white continues with this, if white continues with this and then here, locally it's a very good shape for white, but black is getting to play on. So this is the idea. This is actually, this is one option for white that I think is actually pretty good. White could have played this way. It's about an even game. But you can see that black has played on both sides. So that's the idea behind black's plan. Pushing here is probably the best move. I also had to study what happens if white plays here, but this is actually probably looking a bit better for black. It's working very well with black's structure on the left side. And again, you can see how it's working well with the left side is one of the reasons why I thought this is a position where I could try this move out.
Well, it seems like black has a lot of good sort of ways to go, right? I mean, it's a very flexible position for black.
Yeah, well, in the end, I just couldn't find a good. This is not what happened in the game actually, but I couldn't find a good way to refute this move.
Yeah.
Instead of anyone who sees this for the first time would probably just want to push.
Sure, absolutely.
It seems to be making me eye up the left and the right, but I'm actually was more worried about this move and jumping here, and maybe here, maybe something like this would happen. But you can see white can still jump into the upper side.
Yeah.
Not completely satisfied with this, but this is maybe. I have two AIs on my computer at home, so the AIs seem to think it's just about even. But I didn't like this variation actually.
So the feel for it was not right for you.
Yeah, well, this is what I would be worried about, and it's probably a reason that I'm not going to continue playing that shoulder hit. But I figured that in a game with limited time, and for the first time, I would expect sort of my opponent to be pushing here.
Right, right.
And so I get to play this.
But you're saying also it took him time to look at it.
Well, here and throughout the variation here, it was every move he was being faced with a new position. Basically.
And you'd looked at probably most or all of them.
Well,
before.
like I had this variation all figured out, and so some of the main variations I'd already been looking at, and I knew that they were roughly even.
Cool.
And also there's the fact that the way Black has played here has made this attachment at the 3-3 point is usually a Tetsuji for White. It's usually a good move, but the point here is that Black has made it a bad move. And so White's not going to do that. White didn't do that in the game.
I'm sorry. Why is it a bad move?
I'm going to show you.
Okay.
Black plays here, and Black plays an Atari. And at this point, it's really clumsy for White to connect.
Oh, yeah.
White could play an Atari on the second line, but that's not a great result either. So let's just have White connect, and that's more demonstrative how bad this is for White. Because after this, basically, those two white stones, the two marked stones, are very wasted. They're not useful.
Right.
And I think it's fair to say that those two marked white stones have been exchanged for these two marked black stones, which are both very effective moves. And so this is just very cramped for White and just good for Black. And so this move, this attachment to the corner, which is supposed to be a very effective move, the effectiveness is pretty much nullified by the position of this black stone, and also the fact that this exchange is already in, so that when White is forced to connect here, it becomes a very bad shape, a wasted move. This stone becomes completely wasted.
I'm not even sure a pro could bring his hand to play that move, right?
No, White would probably. I'm giving this variation in the SDF file also because it's the most demonstrative. I think in an actual game, White would be playing the Atari from this side.
Yeah.
Again, that's probably satisfactory. It's a pretty good variation for Black anyway, so I'm not going to go into that in detail.
Right.
So White did not do that. White played the Hane. Hane on the top of two stones is supposed to be great shape. But again, this is a position where AlphaGo has sort of encouraged me to not pay so much attention to those things. And Black does get to Dajo on the left side, the upper side, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I would expect White to play. I think this is White's best move. Even this is the old style way of playing, just getting a local good shape. And obviously, these two black stones are bad shape in the exchange for this. But also, you could say that all of White's stones, although that it's a very thick shape for White's not really accomplishing very much in the way of making territory with these five stones that White has played in the upper right. They're just a wall with no eyes at this point.
Right.
And so it's arguable that at this point White is not succeeding very well. When White continues with this move and gets to surround Black here, you can see that White's stone at A and White's extension at B, and having everything connecting up like this, it makes it a reasonable position for White, actually.
Yeah, I don't mind that position for White. I still think it feels a bit better for Black, but it certainly looks playable for White, right?
Yeah, so I think this is actually how White should have played. This is how I would play if this happened to me now with White. But in the actual game, I think he got a bit upset with me for playing such an unusual move at him. And he played a shoulder hit of his own. And I pushed, and then he dodged to the left. So this is actually a vital shape in the upper left corner.
Does he have time to do that?
Oh yeah. Well, at the last, if it comes to making eyes, he can always make eyes. Sorry, not that one with this move anyway.
Okay.
So it's not as if he's in danger.
Okay.
And well, I think it was the fact that I sort of said he was upset with me. That I think the point here is that he's trying to take it outside of a variation that I know about. Because up to this point, I was playing all of my moves instantly, just about, because I knew exactly what to do when he played here. And it was probably pretty obvious that I had the whole thing worked out. And so he was taking it outside of that variation,
You didn't
making
look at,
it.
yeah,
And
you didn't look at this one,
I
did
didn't
you?
even I didn't think of this one.
Yeah.
And it's probably not a very good move, but I wasn't ready for it. So it was effective because at this point I made what I'm going to call a mistake. I probably should have just played this again, the shape move.
Yeah, just over the, yeah.
I think actually the bad effect that AlphaGo has had with us is we sort of distrust ourselves when we want to play the shape move.
Oh, yeah.
So
Try to come up
sometimes
with a
it
clever
misleads
move.
us. Yeah. So in this variation, the value of playing this move is that white's going to play something in the corner like this anyway. So it's going to be a trade. And this is the trade that I would expect in the corner. It's a kind of a joseki shape. And black gets to play here. In this position, if black gets to peep here next, white's going to have a very lousy shape. So white has to fix the shape here. And so you can see that this black move here has become a very good double purpose move. In one way, it's surrounding the upper side, making a territory there for black, but it's also putting pressure on white by just looking at it from the side there. So white has to continue. Yeah.
No, just show people. I think a lot of people would be tempted to cut because they would feel like, white owed a move there. So show people why they shouldn't cut.
Are you talking about this cut?
Yeah, instead of the peep.
Okay, white has a number of ways to deal with that, but maybe white would just play here and bump against here, because then white could capture the stone.
Right.
But like I wouldn't even think of cutting. I would think of peeping here actually, because if black can peep here and then play here, this would be sort of very nice. White would have shape. But actually, white's probably going to just ignore the peep and make a life in the corner.
Right.
So I've decided that this is probably black's best variation. And white has to live here. When white plays this way, white's going to be pretty safe. But of course, black has gotten the corner territory in return. And so black can continue this way. And the upper side is going to be black's territory. And black has a lead in territory in this game. Black has a lead in territory. And by pushing here, the final move, this final move on the left here, pushing here, black's going to force white for a bit there to consolidate the upper side territory. And then black will be able to go back to the left side. Because as it stands, white is not 100% alive in the upper left corner yet. So white would probably have to add some moves here. Something like this might happen. And then black could add a stone here on the left side. I'm not so sure about that final move. I might have been a bit sloppy with it. But something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and black has enough territory. Black has a territorial lead.
But this is not the game.
No. In the game, like playing a good shape move that is gote. In the old style, it's something that people would be very proud of. It's like it's gote, but in a way it's sente because it gives all that extra potential profit to black.
Sure.
But the AI way of playing is to just grab sente as quickly as possible by playing forcing moves, and it's a bit vulgar. But partly because I've been doing some study with AIs, I think this looked better to me. But as it turns out, it's not putting as much pressure on white's stone on the upper side, because white still has a move like this, for instance, to make a base on the upper side. So it's not as effective as this move in taking away white's position on the upper side. And so it was a vulgar way to play. And eventually I had to play this extension on the right side anyway. To forestall a white play at A. So it wasn't even sente really. So it wasn't a very good move. And white curled around in the center. That's a very thick move. Akiyama does have a tendency to play very thickly. He's a very good player when he plays a thick game. And and white still has some room on the upper side. So I spent a move on the upper side anyway. And so it wasn't all that efficient for black. And I think I've lost most of my lead at this point. I think I had a very small lead at the point where white played, for instance, this move, or after that move, maybe. But now that I played at this point, maybe white has caught up with me mostly. And so I pincer here. And white's going to play an attachment in the corner, but he plays here once first to create some extra forcing moves. So this is a very good sequence that white's going to play here. And we're going to see that. We're going to see this kick here, which looks like a strange move. We're going to see how it works in the following continuation. White cuts in the corner, And this could have been done from the 3-3 point or from the outside. It usually ends up in this cross-cut position. And this is it looks like a joseki. Like the joseki move would be to play an atari on this side.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like this. And white would live in the corner. Something like this would happen. And this is very close to the joseki shape. It's almost a joseki sequence. But in this board position, it's very efficient for white because black already had a strong position on the upper side. So the upper side territory is slightly over-concentrated, slightly too many black stones. And white has a strong position in the corner, which means that now black has to worry about the left side. And so compared to that successful variation that I was talking about earlier, black is more compressed, not such a big territory on the upper side, and white has a better position all over. White's position in the center of the board is pretty good too.
Yeah, black just feels kind of pushed down. And
but with this move here, although this is the joseki move, when black has a lot of strength in the general area, sometimes black can play this move, playing an atari from what is usually called the wrong side. And so the idea here is that white extends here, and then black plays this way. And black is just trying to hang on to those stones. So just to add one variation for the... this is where white should have played. So just to add one variation for the viewers here, one thing that can happen here is white tries to win the semi-eye in the corner. And the point is that this black stone on the side here is going to make a big difference because black can curl around here and capture the whole corner by connecting up here. And this might look a bit stupid by connecting on the first line. It's supposed to be bad.
Yeah,
but in actuality, the whole corner is dead. So it's worth it for black now. Yeah, it's in this case, it's actually good for black, even though black's connecting on the first line.
Right.
So that's the idea behind it. It all depends on having this stone here that black can connect up to. So that stone there is one of the vital stones that makes this work. And so in the game move, actually, white curled immediately, which was a very tricky move. And it's sort of interesting because I didn't take advantage of it as much as I should have. It wasn't the best move. What white should have done is white plays here. And the point behind this move is that if black continues answering on the upper side, I don't have black doing that. So this is black's correct move. White curls around and black captures the corner. White gets to squeeze. And then white's going to play at A or B.
That's really nice, right?
It's really nice. Well, white gets to squeeze, which is a nice squeeze. The drawback is that now this exchange has become a bad exchange for white. It's about even. Overall, it's about even. Because black does have the corner territory and white does not have eyes yet. So black has some potential to attack. And then in the process of attacking, black's going to make some territory on the left side. So this would be the even variation. And just to add one variation, if black continues on the upper side like this, the point is that white can eventually, actually white would do it in a different order now. White would start from this move. And this is slightly different. Like it's, or let's just have white do it this way anyway. Like this is slightly different because white can have the knight's move here. And now it's a lot of trouble in the corner. I think I made that variation somewhere else. So let's try to find it. So instead of curling around, what white did in the game is white played here. And I connected. Oh, no, I didn't connect.
That's what I was just looking at that variation.
If I had connected. Now the idea is that white's going to curl around here and play the knight's move. So this is where I made that variation. So this is actually working very well for white. I can maybe win in the corner. Actually, white has some move orders in which white can actually try to win the semi in the corner, but white's sort of letting black off the hook here because it's bad for black anyway. This position is already bad for black. When white plays at B, black has to go after the corner because otherwise black would lose the semi. And white's getting a lot out of this. White's getting a good squeeze. White has forcing moves at B and D. Just to show you that, just a random move for black. If white plays here and then plays here, that means white's going to win the semi here because black cannot push in the corner.
That's right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of potential for white to play a forcing move at B, and when white does that, when white does that, black's going to be putting a stone in the corner. Means white's going to be able to lean on black on the upper side there. And so actually white's group is pretty strong. Although black is not going to play that move. Black's going to try to find a better move, but white's going to be okay in the fight here. And so let's see. Here we are at the game position. White curled around, and I curled. So this is okay. And white played here. And I played the strongest move. And it's sort of interesting because I sort of had I had a feeling that this was dangerous.
Yeah, you're right. But you played it anyway.
Yeah, I played it anyway. So the safe move would have been to play here. So this would have avoided any complications.
Right.
And if white continues this way, white's probably going to live in the corner. Black plays here. This is actually good for black.
I can read that one. That's the one I was looking at just because it's easy to read.
Otherwise, if white plays here, white can get on the outside. But this is actually, it leaves some Aji in the corner, but this is bad for white because black can just go ahead and cut here too.
Oh, nice.
And white's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So this actually, if I had played the safe move, the relatively safe move, it would have been a good variation for black. Just playing here. I mean here. But this is what I did. It's the more dangerous variation. And like if white jumps here, it's really interesting because black will add a stone here. Black has to deal with the cut.
Right.
Black plays here, white will cut here.
Yeah.
So black has to deal with that. And white can cover, but now black has a cute little Tetsuji here.
Yeah, I see it.
Black can play the honey underneath.
Right.
And cut. And obviously if white cuts here, this is going to be bad for white. This is black just goes after the 3 stones. This is a good result. Well, white could continue on the side. It's going to be a good result for black. Otherwise, white's correct move would probably be to connect here. And this is a good result for black. But white has some outside, you might call it influence. But also black has the best potential territory for black. And that's a pretty big corner territory for black.
Yeah, I mean, anything that ends with black, scooping up the corner seems like it's good for black, right? Yeah,
it's a big territory. And the point is that white's outside position is not invulnerable. It's still, there's a ladder break and there's, it doesn't have 2 eyes yet. It doesn't have a base yet. So the strength on the left side is about even. Black has a fight that black can still play there.
Mm.
So that was the idea, basically, that black has no problem just playing here, and it's going to be okay. White doesn't have any strong moves. Like if white plays this one, again, white can cut black off, but it's not going to be that successful. Like black could just add a stone to the corner to kill white. Let's see. Any move will kill white, but let's just have black play here. Right. And white's outside shape is not very good.
Right. Yeah, there's that clever move at E13,
yeah. Black doesn't even have to do that. Like white's already eyeless. So yeah, it's good for black anyway. So this is the move that was played. An ugly empty triangle.
Whoa. Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, who would play that?
Such an ugly move.
You said he liked to play thickly, I guess.
Well, it's connected. It's a really ugly move, but it's also very effective. Obviously, if white covers on the 3rd line next, white's going to capture those stones. If black rolls here, white will extend. And then black has to back off. And it's interesting to compare this with what was happening in a similar variation. Black has to play now it's a kind of a semi-eye shape. It's a fight to capture.
Yeah.
Black has to be a lot more careful because, like, if we assume something like this, there's still a bit of a squeeze, and you see that black has an extra stone inside that territory that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm.
That stone is an extra stone. White's getting a stone on not that one, this one. And white has got an extra stone on the outside. It's just because black has to be so careful to capture those 3 stones. And white still actually has a squeeze with C. Let's just go through the squeeze with C.
That's just really annoying.
It's still annoying because if white plays here, black will win the semi by playing here. But again, this is just a lot of moves that black is going to be putting into the territory to capture. It's a temporary Seki-like shape. Black actually has put something like 3 moves inside the territory while white slipped in a bit. So it's not as big a territory. With this extra stone inside black's territory, white's getting a lot in compensation.
And the white shape on the outside is much better than it was before.
White shape, well, yeah, it's a bit better. And so this is actually a very effective move. So here, and actually playing here would be dangerous. So you can see me playing this very solid move, which is adding an extra stone into my territory. If black plays this way, it's more dangerous because now white's going to get the squeeze here, and white has a lot of extra liberties. Black's going to have trouble winning this scenario. Like it's going to be a Seki at best. So that's bad. And so instead of curling, I play this. White's going to push through once, and guess the next move.
For white? I mean, I don't see. I mean, it can't be the obvious Atari because that would be too obvious. Maybe F14? I don't know.
That's a kind of a shape move, but that would, like you say, if white plays there, then black gets to play the Atari here, and black has saved everything.
Yeah, it helps him to fix. Yeah.
So the answer is this ugly move.
Oh my God! Oh, it's so ugly. How many empty triangles? 1, 2, 3. It's just
no. He's filled empty triangles.
Oh, sorry.
It's just a clump of stones.
Is that a dango? It's a dango.
It's a dango shape, yes. It's another very effective ugly move.
But it works, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. Just the satisfaction of forcing him into this shape makes up for the fact that he's going to kill me in the corner. And so I'm dead.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But actually, I do get to play a ladder breaking move, so it's actually a pretty even result. And I had the satisfaction of being able to sort of laugh at him a little bit when he played that strange move. But actually, if we go back to a certain point where I played this move, I think I actually had a lead if I had played that move on this side. So yeah. I have lost something when white. Let's see, where am I? I better do it in a more normal fashion. Yeah, sorry about that. And so in this position, I have lost some of my lead. I've lost my lead. It's about even, or maybe slightly better for white. But I do get to play a ladder breaking move. So the obvious ladder breaking move would be this one, which I did choose. White will answer on this side, and black. And in this position, it's not really useful for black to have stones on the outside like this. And white will maybe continue with A. Black's outside wall is not really accomplishing very much.
It looks difficult for black now, right?
Yeah, that would be bad for black. So instead, I play from the corner. And so I'm keeping this forcing move at A in reserve. Like if white extends here, white can avoid the ladder. But one thing I could do is I could play here. That would be a ladder breaking move. White would have to answer on the upper left. So I could do it this way. This is an even result. Or I could just curl in the corner and forget the ladder, because actually squeezing like this is a pretty good move too. So this would be another way to play. I've already taken a certain profit in the corner, and now I get to squeeze in the center, which is a good thick move. And this would, again, it would be another even game, just about even.
Mm-hmm.
So white just finishes the position in the upper left. And of course, we're both out of time at this point. Like I got into trouble in the upper left, so I used up most of my time too.
Right.
And so this is a point where we both start to make a couple more mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, white should continue in the lower right corner. So white should play here. And something like this. And white has some Aji at A, which we're going to see later in the game. And so the left side territory, white has potential to invade or potential to reduce it. And a nice position on the lower side. And and black has a lot of territory on the right side. So it's about even now.
Hmm.
I'm going to call this an even result. In the game, white scooped out my right side territory, which was bad. This was bad, but it worked really well in the game. So that's sort of going to be interesting.
Explain.
Well, it's because I made a mistake after white finished here.
Ah.
It's really bad for white to be scooping out this territory because it's not connected up to white's well on the left. Black plays here. This is more or less a forcing move. Like if white plays on this side now, white can continue like this, but black gets to connect here. White has to live in the corner. And black gets this beautiful shape here where black is threatening to cut it at D. Black has 2 eyes already. And the whole white group there, including the marked stones, is just dead. It's dead in the center of the board. Black's going to be able to attack that and build on the left side of the board a territory, and maybe even get a split attack between the white group at A and the white group in the center.
Wow.
So this is just an easy win for black. So obviously white's not going to do that. White has to add a stone to the corner. So this would make a big difference if black answers it, and then answers the, okay, so this is the game move. Oh, I didn't even make a variation for black connecting on the third line. It's not important for black to connect on the third line at this point. And you can see that exchange would be a good exchange for white anyway.
Mm.
So what I did in the game was I started to build up the left side because there's some bad Aussie there. I wanted to make it safer. But I had the wrong idea of direction here. This was my mistake. Because the point is that what white has accomplished here, although I'm calling it a bad move for white to invade the right side like this, what white has accomplished is that white has taken away black's base.
Yeah.
And that's why that other variation where black is getting 2 eyes here is so bad for white, because black actually gets a perfectly living shape,
right,
and then gets to attack white. So that would be counterproductive. But in this position, black doesn't have 2 eyes on the right side. So that means that as people say nowadays, the right side is a hot spot. It's a very important area. Black has to add a stone to cool it down a little bit. So this would be something that I would expect after black plays the Tari in the corner. And it gives black a chance to play one more move in the immediate area and basically settle that group on the right side. And you can see now it's the white groups that white has to worry about a little bit. White's group in the lower right corner, and eventually the white group on the upper side too, if it could get cut off. So this is actually good for black. This if I had played this way, I would have had a slight advantage. But I got distracted by the left side. There's things on the left side that are worrying me, like that curl on the second line here. But it's not amounting to anything immediately. So I should have played this move on the right side. And this is where I really get into trouble. Well, just ignore this Joseki-like sequence on the left. I'm building on the left side. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
White can crawl. Let's take a look at the crawling move. What happens here is that white can crawl twice. Black has to cover at this point to capture white.
Right.
And it looks bad, but there's actually nothing that white can really do against black in the center. White can play this kind of squeeze-like play. And in some cases, this is going to be very, very effective. Like black is getting the left side territory, but white will be able to squeeze once more from the corner here eventually. White might want to wait a bit because sometimes white will want to be playing another push in the center, so white will probably just leave it and play on the right side again. But this is one thing that white can do. It's one way to fix the shape, but white's maybe not quite ready to do it immediately. It's something that white can do later in the game when white wants to reduce the value of the left side by preventing black from expanding into the center. And so white continues on the left side. I mean, the right side.
The right side, yeah.
Yeah. And this here was a very, very strong move. Usually you don't attach against group or opponent's weak group like this, but in this case, white's going to attach, and when I hane, white's going to cut. And this turned into a very effective attack against my group. So this is why I should have been playing another move on the right side. I play one Atari, and you can see here that if white really goes after these marked stones here, then in some cases I'm going to be able to throw them away.
Right.
Because the lower right area is going to be big too. These white stones, if black gets to swallow these 3 stones on a large scale, they're going to be bigger. So that's why I have the time to play this Atari here from the 3rd line. White's not going to let me capture that stone. And I pull back. White curls around. So far, so good. But now you see I have a problem of how to capture the cutting stone. And the point is that capturing it like this is just not going to be satisfactory because white plays an Atari here. And I have to choose whether to capture, which would be a sort of a nihilist shape, or to play here, which is also a nihilist shape when white. It's really annoying when white peeps here. Getting rid of the weakness here for white. It's getting rid of this weakness. And black has to figure out a good way to capture the one black stone, the one white stone. There's no satisfactory way to do that and keep 2 eyes at the same time. So this is going to be a floating, weak black group. And you can see white's already alive on the right side. It's just a lost game. So I wasn't going to do that. But I was out of time. So my only other choice is to extend here. So I'm getting a bit stubborn. This gets me into trouble too. So I'm not going to say it's a good move, but this was so obviously bad for me. I just had to try something. And so obviously white's going to save the cutting stone. And I play 1 extension, and I play here once. White has to save the stone again. And you can see, while threatening white, I'm threatening the cut here in some cases. I'm threatening the cut here. So I'm gradually settling this group here, but it's not.
That's pretty nice.
It's not alive yet.
No, but it's looking a lot livelier than it was a couple of moves ago.
And so white moves out. White has to extend the liberties of this group on the right, but this is a very effective move in any case. And black connects here. So now black is threatening this cut in earnest. White has to answer that. So white answers here. Black, you can see white's cutting black off too. And then white connects here. So this gets rid of the cut at this point. This move white just played.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just trying to see where your second eye is.
So I cut here. I have an eye.
You have 1 eye.
I have an eye, yeah.
So we don't really know that you need 2, right?
Yeah, I know.
I just don't see.
Well, AlphaGo doesn't always need 2, it doesn't seem.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll see how that works.
So if I push through at B here, I'm going to have my second eye.
Right.
Yeah. So the question is what happens with this? And I play here. White can make a ko in the corner.
Right.
So this is actually a very dangerous ko for black. But white sort of hesitates to play it too, because white, in the process of losing this ko, white's going to lose something like 20 points.
Okay.
So white has to have a very good idea of where white's going to get the 20 points back. This is actually at this point, the game is looking very dangerous for me. And this is one way white could have tried to win the game. But we were obviously both in our final sections of overtime. And so we didn't really have time to think about it. And I had realized the moment, and my mistake, as I was saying, it was the fact that I played this move away from the right side when I should have added a stone to the right side here.
Right.
So that was my mistake. And let's just get back to the position here. So at this point, I've realized that I've messed up a little bit. So I'm willing to have a complicated ko in which white stands to lose a lot of points. It's a big profit for black to capture that corner. It's about 20 points.
Yeah.
And so white sort of hesitated to do that. This is also a very important move, and it settles the position in the center. So it's worthwhile for white to be playing this move. It's very difficult for me to escape with that group, and I just cut. So this is a trade. And believe it or not, the territory is still pretty ambiguous. It's hard to say who's ahead.
Wow.
And so this is an interesting move. Again, you can see that white is trying to win without doing anything super dangerous. I think he seems to have the idea that he's going to win this game when he plays this move. Because, again, white sort of wants to go after the black group with this connection here. And the reason he didn't do that is because it's sort of annoying for white when black plays B as a forcing move, as a co-threat. Threatening to connect up. This is worth several points. It's worth several points. It also has the value of giving a completely alive shape to the black group on the upper side. And so it's a very valuable move that black gets to play as a co-threat to save the upper right corner. And so white didn't like that. And so that's why he plays this jump, trying to push around my group on the upper side before starting the ko. Now, after playing at A, he can start the ko with less worry about losing points. So I do have to add a stone. This is a very important move, actually, in the center, which now, at last, my left side is sort of spreading out into the center and starting to look like a very nice moyo there, or almost, you could call it a territory. And so that gets rid of all that squeezing potential white had on the left side at B. And now white, again, white is trying to win without actually playing that ko. Like in some cases, white will want to be able to play this exchange, and white would like to have enough territory to win by doing this. But at this point in the game, it's not really good enough, so white has to get some extra profit first. So that's what white is trying to do, attacking black here in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'm not doing it the easy way. There's a number of ways black could handle this would be relatively simple. But because I'm in trouble anyway, I'm sort of keeping it complicated. And making it exciting on the upper side. Like with this honey, I'm putting pressure on white, the white group on the right, because there is some aji with a peep here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sort of putting a little bit of pressure on that white group, which would change the number of co-threats to a great degree, and playing a very aggressive move here when I'm supposed to be in trouble. And again, I play another aggressive move here. And so white tries to punish me here. And I push through once, making the vulnerable stones four stones. And there's a reason I'm setting up this connection. After which, if white pushes through here immediately, and mind you, that if you really examine this position, you could probably find a way for white to win still. But just an example of what I'm setting up here.
Yeah, it was just right.
Is this thing. So you can see there's a point for me to be playing this exchange first to set this up.
But like you're saying, white should be okay, right? But you're saying that neither of you have a lot of time or any time.
We don't have time to really calculate it. And white can get some profit on the left side now. And so I made this variation just to show that white can capture on the left side.
Sure.
But this is actually going to be okay for black because black has got a lot back in this and capturing several white stones, 8 stones, 10 stones on the upper side. So this is a big profit for black. And also now black has some co-threats in the center, like in this vicinity. Black has some co-threats when white starts that ko in the upper right corner. And so the ko is starting to look good for black too. And so this would be maybe a dangerous variation for white. So what white does, obviously he was short on time. He started by squeezing me here. This would be an effective move that takes away my eyes. It was close to the losing move actually, because this was a point where, to be completely honest, it was probably a good point for white to be playing something on the outside or maybe crawling. He should have crawled early as possible because that would have added some aji and changed what happens in that variation. That was just maybe it's too late to crawl now, but at some point he should have been crawling to set this up. But he sort of stumbled into this variation, and when I ignore the Atari, captures 4 stones. Like you would think that white is profited here, but the point is that black is in the process of this whole fight in the upper side. Black has gotten in this this connection here, which is a very important move that spreads my left side out into the center.
Yeah.
And I've settled my group on the upper side, and I've got Sente to add a stone to the upper right corner. And so suddenly the game is looking like it's even or maybe a slight advantage for black.
Wow.
And like all of these changes in the situation are pretty subtle. Like they're less than 5 points one way or the other. A lot of these could have been pretty close games. They could have been end games in any case, but I think at this point it's a slight advantage for black.
But you must have been. I think you must have been really relieved when white went that way. This simplifies it for black, right?
Well, it's still a very close game.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't exactly sure how much territory I could get in the center. It turns out I have some potential here, because this is the biggest move. So I didn't realize how it was turning out. I knew I was sort of I had the feeling I was back in the game at least.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I try to force once here. So the idea is that white answers here, which he didn't, and I get to play these forcing moves. You can see my center is sort of it's sort of filling out. So this would be probably a small win for black. White actually countered this with this move, a very strong move, and again I play these two forcing moves, and I try to save the whole thing.
Whoa.
And if it works, this is very effective. It doesn't quite work, but I'll show you how it happens. This attachment here is a very sharp move, which will enable white to capture the marked stones. So this is a beautiful tesuji that white played. Black connects, white hane. And now white cut here, which was definitely the losing move. This was, there's no question. White could have just pushed through here. And if black covers, white cuts.
Oh.
And just, okay, let's just leave that stone in. Now, if black plays here, it might look like black has potential ice space, but no. Like if black plays here, it's not alive, definitely. Or actually, it might seem better to play here, but that's dead anyway.
Yeah.
Like if white is stupid and or is careless and he plays here, then maybe black's going to be okay. Like this looks a lot better for black. Now black has an eye on the right.
Right.
But it's not going to happen that way. White's going to kill the whole thing.
That's clever.
So, yeah. So this is bad for black. This is just bad for black. And so black would end up, when white cuts here, black would just be playing moves on the outside. And black would again surround the center. This would, again, you can see black's center is, black's making a lot of territory in the center. So this is, white is, in return for white playing this move and getting a little bit here, black is also being in the process of doing this, black has gotten this move in. So it's about an even trade locally. And I think black might have a slight lead. It all depends on what happens in the upper right corner there. You can see that if white plays at B, it's still going to be a ko.
Right, right.
So there's some question as to how the territory is going to turn out there. But in the actual game, white cut here. And when I played Atari, then he played here. So white's giving up more in the center than he had to.
Wow.
Because if white extends here, and then black's going to play here, white still has to go back and capture that stone. And you can see this extension here was a kind of a turning point, but capturing would allow black to squeeze first. So that would be bad too. White extends and captures the stone, but now black's going to play on this side. And you can see white's whole right side group is starting to get into trouble. And I've already profited greatly by saving all those stones. So this is a win for black. So in the game, and so this was probably not by plan, because giving me the two stones there was a big loss. So I think he had some miscalculation inside that variation where I'm saying he could kill me.
Sure.
There was some kind of a miscalculation here that made him play this cut first. But that was the losing move.
Right.
And so there's also the fact that while we're doing all this fighting in the center, we had to count the territory. And so maybe he had a miscalculation as to how he was doing as far as territory is concerned. Because at this point, it's already a win for black. And so I'm not doing many variations after this. One important point is that I throw away the 4 stones here. This was pretty important to throw away the 4 stones and simplify the game by surrounding the center. And actually, the 4 stones and this endgame move here, they're about the same size anyway. This endgame move, and you're going to see how that endgame move is pretty big, because it's going to set up a fight to capture. And so we fight the ko, and then I live on the side, and white captures the 4 stones, and I get to play this move. And now white has to decide whether to add a stone to the upper right corner to make a life, but he eventually decides correctly that he doesn't have enough territory to do that. So this is the game variation here. White is playing, this is a really big endgame move that white has just played in the corner. And so regardless as to whether white saves the upper right corner or not, white has to play this big endgame move. So it loses a ko thread or so, But then white plays here. So this is the point where white could have played here. And then eventually connected in the upper right corner to save that group. But this is going to end up being a normal endgame. And this is the correct sequence for black to make an eye here. And white's going to win that semi-eye. But you can see black is squeezing. And this is just an easy win for black. Black's more than 10 points ahead before Komi. So it's going to be a safe win. I actually played a lousy squeeze in the actual game, but it was good enough anyway, because it doesn't matter. I was like AlphaGo, and I didn't care at that point.
That's what I was just thinking. It's very Alpha. Once you had to win, you didn't
like
care.
Locally, this is a terrible move. I should have played the squeeze that I was showing you before.
Right.
In which black cuts here first and then makes an eye. It gets a better squeeze. So people are interested to look at that. But it doesn't make any difference at this point. The game is just lost for white anyway. And eventually, I don't win the ko, but I play 2 endgame moves. And you can see that it's interesting that white is not playing this ko threat because it's not going to be big enough. And so actually, I'm going to get to play that ko threat. So I get to play this one.
Wow.
So it's a ko threat for black instead of a ko threat for white, which is pretty unusual. And this was enough to win the game. So it was a straightforward end game after that. No mistakes.
What's the final score?
It was 4.5. I think it was 4.5. Yeah. So it was an easy win for me and so actually white was losing points by allowing me in the final stages of the end game. White slightly lost by allowing me to get this Hanesugi here. Mm-hmm. And actually taking the 4 stones in this area was actually not as big as that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think basically my capture of the 2 stones in the center was the winning point.
Very good. I've been wrapping up here, but I want to ask a question relevant to this game. Bill Cobb's been doing his empty board columns again, and in a recent one, he was talking about the he raises some questions about timed games. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, because clearly there was some stuff going on. I mean, there's just some outright mistakes in this game that had not very much to do with time, but it looks like there were several moves that were
time related. Well, sometimes you have to compromise because you can't read out to the all of the variations and stuff. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, as I was doing in this game, you just say what the hell, and you go into a dangerous variation anyway, and mm-hmm. you can get into trouble. Mm-hmm. But that's I think that's a valid factor especially in professional games. When it's your own responsibility to be able to handle the fact that you have to calculate quickly and make educated guesses, you might say.
Right. Yeah. No, it's interesting. And another thing that, when we've been looking at these AlphaGo games where, even as complicated as they get, they just, I mean, one of the challenges for you is that they'll make one of the players will make a move that looks like a mistake, but it's mm-hmm. not. You have to figure out what's going on. And I think that's a big difference because in human players, because we have time limits and because we have, we can't read as powerfully as the mm-hmm. as the AIs, we do make mistakes. Even top level mm-hmm. pros make mistakes or less optimal moves anyway.
Yeah. And of course, the level of ability to compute with humans at the professional level, it's pretty close to each other.
Right.
And whereas the AIs are beyond us at this point, especially AlphaGo with the supercomputers that they have.
Right. Right. Well, as always, Michael, it's a pleasure and great to see another one of your games. I always enjoy those. Those are really fun. I hope we can see some more of those. And of course, we all wish you the very best of luck whenever you're playing. And All right. Before we wrap this up, I do want to give another huge thanks to all of our AGA members out there. Thanks, folks. You make videos like this possible, and we really appreciate it. And if you're not a member, but you'd like to support this content as well, please consider joining the American Go Association. You can just go on over to usgo.org and click on join, and lots of other cool stuff there as well. So thanks for watching. See you all next week.